what we're going to do now is we're going to pick up the second part of residual income valuation. We're going to start working through an example where we've got those 4 different scenarios that we've mentioned previously, where we are going to look at the different ways that we can assess the continuing residual income, whether there's a pure competition model, a monopolistic competition, or a sense where the price-to-book ratio of the firm approaches the average for the industry. Okay, so we're going to move to the next slide and take a look at Fast Ship. Fast Ship in this case has an ROE of 20% for the next 4 years. And what that's going to represent is, if you remember in the multi-stage model, we start with a book value in time period 0. We have a high growth stage of residual income, and then we have a continuing residual income stage that we want to take at T-1 and move it back and present value back with everything else. So the initial value in our residual income valuation is that book value of $8. Now notice that the firm pays no dividends. Well, that kind of makes perfect sense, because right below that you see the return, the required return assumption for the firm is at 15%. So with an ROE of 20 and a required rate of return of 15, we actually find out that the firm is making a positive 5% spread. And when a firm has got that kind of a money-making machine, a franchise, a moat around their business, or a competitive sustainable advantage, or sustainable competitive advantage, then they have a 5% spread, means that they really shouldn't pay out any to the dividends to their shareholders. They should just retain it. Okay, so when we're walking the book value from one period, retained earnings in the beginning, plus net income, minus the dividends equals the retained earnings at the end, we don't have to worry about dividends in this case, as we did in one of the prior examples. So in order to get our earnings, what we're going to do is we're going to assume that the book value times the ROE is going to give us, essentially, our estimate for earnings. So let me show you exactly what that means, in case it's not intuitive for you. Remember, ROE is net income divided by shareholders' equity, or book value. I wasn't sure which one to use. And then when you take the book value per share, these two items are identical and cancel, so what you get is your earnings per share value that we had in the numerator. Okay? So in a way, it's a backward way of kind of getting a forecasted earnings based on what book value is going to be for each period, for each of the 4 years that we've got the high residual income. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to tackle this first approach, where after 4 years, the residual income is going to go to 0. It basically means we're in a pure competition market. There's no persistence of the residual income, and as a result, we're just going to present value back that final component along with year 3, I believe, since we've got to go to T-1 and present value back those cash flows. So let me show you how we've kind of taken the chart that we had earlier in the slides and we've turned it a little bit differently. So if we kind of walk through this first approach where the persistence factor is actually 0, that omega, remember it had a range of 0 to 1, and 0 means that there's no competitive advantage, no persistence after the high growth stage where the ROE is 20% for 4 years. So we have the initial period where the beginning book value is $8. And remember, if we take the $8 times the ROE of 20%, we do get $1.60 in this case. So then we know if we take the beginning value of the firm, $8, add $1.60, we're not paying out any dividends, so the ending book value at the next period should be $8 plus $1.60 to get to your $9.60. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to calculate the equity charge. The equity charge, if you remember, is 15%. So if we take 15% times the book value in time period 0, we actually get $8 times 15, or $1.20. We're going to subtract that $1.20, right there, the $1.20, from the $1.60 of earnings that we achieved to get our residual income of 40 cents. Okay? So that's how we walk through the first year. So let's do the second year. The second year, we're going to take basically the $9.60, and we're going to hit it with the 20% ROE. And when we do that, we're going to get basically $1.92. 96 cents times 2 is basically 8 cents less than $2, or $1.92. So our earnings estimate in year 2 is $1.92. If we take the beginning book value in year 1, add $1.92 of earnings in year 2, then our book value at the end of the year, since we pay no dividends, should be $11.52. Now to get our equity charge, we're going to take the $9.60, the prior year's book value, times the 15%, and we should get $1.44. If we subtract the $1.44, the equity charge, from the earnings for the year, for year 2 of $1.92, we should get residual income of 48 cents. Okay? So we just walked through year 2. Let's do year 3. If we take the 1152 times the 20% ROE, we should get the earnings for year 3 of $2.30. Now, if you take the 1152, the beginning book value in the year 2, or beginning book value in year 3 would be 1152, the ending value in year 2. Add the $2.30 of earnings for year 3. You should get the ending book value at the end of the year, $13.82. So again, we're just walking the book value from each period forward. Now again, if we calculate the equity charge, we need to take 15% times the 1152, and we should get $1.73. Remember, the equity charge is always the cost of equity times the book value at the beginning of the period. That's why it's 20% times the 1152 to get us there. So the equity charge in year 3 is $11.73. Subtract $11.73 from $2.30, and you get the resulting residual income for year 3 of 57 cents. Now in the final year, the 4th year, this is the last part of the high growth stage where our ROE remains at 20%. After that, competitive force is going to come in, and our persistence factor is going to be 0. Okay? So if we take the beginning book value in year 4, which is the ending book value in year 3 of 1382, we hit it by 20% ROE, we should find the earnings for year 4 are $2.76. If we take the 1382 plus the 276, should equal the 1658. Now, before we go too far, I want you to take a highlighter and actually highlight through that 1658. We're going to use that in our 4th case that we're going to work through. Okay, so we're going to have to use this a little bit later. So make sure, I'm going to even do it a little bit more dastardly here. Oh, I can't use a pencil. I have to use this magic marker here. Make sure you highlight, I need to use a pencil in this case, highlight that 1658, because we're going to use that in a couple slides as we go forward. So remember that we've got that. Now lastly, if we take our 16, or our 11, or I'm sorry, the $13.82 times 20% or the 15% equity charge, we get the equity charge of $2.07. Subtract that from the 276, and you get 69 cents in year 4. Okay, so all of these values are going to be important when we walk through the next stage of the model. So our first stage in our multi-stage is the $8, the book value. The second stage is the present value of all the high growth period residual income, because our ROE is 20%. And now we have to do the third stage in our multi-stage model. And basically what that is we're saying that in that last stage, our final year's residual income, year 4, is 69 cents. And we're going to say 1 plus R minus 1. Or I'm sorry, it's minus 0, because the persistence factor in this case is 0. So 1 plus 0.15 plus 0 is 1.15. And so what we do is we present value 69 cents back by one period to get 60 cents. Now remember, we have to move that from year 4 to year 3. So if you notice what happens, the beginning book value is $8. That's our first stage. Cash flow in year 1 is that residual income of 40 cents, 48 cents in year 2, 57 cents in year 3, plus that 60 cents, because it was the 69 in year 4 moved back by t minus 1, and it becomes 60 cents that we add to the 57 cents to get to be a total of $1.17 in year 3. Now what we're going to do is we're going to present value that 117 back for 3 years at 15%, 48 cents back for 2 years at 15%, and 40 cents back by 1 year at 15%. And what we're going to find is the lowest value NPV of $9.48, because basically omega in this case, get my little handy dandy pen here, my omega in this case was 0. And therefore you end up with the lowest value in each of the 4 cases that we're going to be working through. Okay, so we have no persistence. We have a monopolist or a pure competition model where the firm initially could earn abnormal economic profits in years 1 through 4, but after that, market forces come in, pure competition brings equilibrium back into play, and as a result, there's no persistence of economic income beyond year 4. Okay, so let's work through the second example now, where the residual income is going to be in a perpetuity. Now we have maybe an oligopoly, or even more so, maybe a regulated monopoly like a utility, in the sense that they have now a constant residual income. Remember, the residual income in year 4 was 69 cents. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take that 69 cents divided by 1 plus R minus 1, because in this case, the perpetuity factor is going to be 1. So 1 plus R minus 1 in the denominator, and that R is 15%. So what that 69 cents in year 4 really is becoming is a perpetuity. That's just going to exist forever, and we just make it a perpetuity by taking the numerator divided by the discount rate of 15, because it's 1 plus 0.15 minus 1, ends up just being 0.5. We get $4.60. That's so much larger. It's the complete opposite end of the spectrum that we had in approach 1. Okay? So we're taking that 69 cents in year 4, making a perpetuity by dividing by 0.15, and we get $4.60. That is going to be moved back and added to 57 cents in year 3. So let's turn the slide and I'll show you what I mean. Remember, the cash flow in time period 0 is that $8. Cash flow in year 1 is 40 cents. Cash flow in year 2 is 48 cents. And year 3 should be the 57 cents from year 3 plus the 460 perpetuity value, exactly, to get to a total of $5.17. Now we'll present value back $5.17 for 3 years at 15%, 48 for 2 years at 15%, 40 cents in year 1 by 15%, added to the $8. We don't present value that at all, and we get the highest value in each of the 4 scenarios that we're working through of $12.11. And the reason, again, is because the persistence factor, the omega, in this case, is 1.0. Let's make that 1.0, just like that. Okay? So that's our highest value. So the lowest value is when omega was 0. The highest is when the persistence factor, where omega is 1 in this case. Okay? So hopefully you're getting to understand that if you take that year 4 value, you calculate what it is with the 1 plus R minus omega, and then you move it back to t minus 1 to year 3, and then present value those calculations back. So remember, just like in the dividend discount model, you have 2 cash flows in the terminal year. And just like in this case, you have the cash, the economic income in year 3 plus the terminal value in year 4. So you move back the terminal value by 1 period. Okay? Now in the third case, we're now looking at a persistence factor that may resemble something like monopolistic competition. That in 4 years, after year 4, all of a sudden market forces are coming in. They're eating away some of your competitive advantage, but maybe they're able to differentiate on product, on marketing, on distribution, and you're still able to maintain some kind of economic profits. And your persistence factor, which again has a range between 0 on the low side and 1 on the high side, maybe we pick a midpoint of, say, 0.6. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take that residual income in year 4, the 69 cents, and we're going to go 1 plus R, and remember R is 15, minus omega 0.6. And when we calculate that value, we're going to get $1.25. Now we're going to move that $1.25 back 1 year to t minus 1 and add it to the 57 cents that we've done in each of the prior examples. So let's take a look. Cash flow in year 1, year 0 is $8. Year 1 is 40 cents. Year 2 is 48 cents. Now year 3 ought to be the 57 cents plus the $1.25 to be a total of $1.82. Now you notice it's not nearly as great as when omega was 1, but it's also much larger than when omega was 0. Okay, so we present value all those cash flows back at 15%, and we kind of get an intermediate case of $9.91. Again, the whole point of the exercise is to make sure that you recognize that that terminal value that's in year 4 has to be moved back to year 3 and then present value back. Okay? All right, now, remember when we were going through that chart, I said highlight the book value in year 4. It was that $16.58. Well, guess what? It shows up again. It's right here. And basically what we're assuming in year 4, or in the 4th scenario, the 4th approach, is that in year 4, the price-to-book ratio of a firm that has a competitive advantage, usually, if you remember from the price-to-book relative multiples, if you have a competitive advantage, your price-to-book ratio should be greater than 1. Okay? And at some point, if market forces come in, that price-to-book ratio should converge downward toward maybe an industry average. And in this case, we're assuming that the industry average is a 1.1 multiple of price, the market value, to the book value of the firm. Okay? And so what we need to do is we need to look at, if we look at this, it's going to be the residual income in year 4 is going to be a premium of the price over the book value. So how do we get there? Well, we know that book value in year 4 from the chart was $16.58. If we multiply that $16.58 by $1 or by 1.1, we get a value of $18.24. Okay? So if we take that $18.24 minus the book value, we notice that we're going to get a premium of $1.66. If we take that $1.66, that premium of price over book, and add it to the year 4 residual income of 69 cents, divide by 1 plus R, then we get the continuing residual income in year 3 of $2.04. Okay? So one thing I want to strongly encourage you to recognize, I'm going to put my pen back here for a second, is that although this may be at the very end of some difficult material, we've kind of done return concepts with one material, we've done the dividend discount model, we've actually done the free cash flow models, we've done the price multiple models, but in this case, in residual income, this is kind of toward the very back of the chapter. It's kind of one of the last topics we have. Don't skip it. I know from experience and from a lot of chatter that it's something you definitely want to make sure you can do, is the premium of the security above its book value and the final terminal value, along with the last year's cash flow, bring it back to T-1, in this case year 3, and present value it back. So let's take a look at how we wrap up this example. Cash flow in year 0, $8. Year 1, 40 cents. Year 2, 48. Year 3 should be the 57 plus the $2.04 that we just saw, the premium of the price over the book, that 1.1 multiple, plus the 69 cents, and we move it back to T-1. So from year 4 to year 3 is T-1. And we add it to the 57 cents, and we get $2.61. We present value those cash flows back by the respective time periods at 15%, and we even get a little bit higher value in this case of $10.43. Okay? So that's kind of how you should be able to walk through all the different stages of the multiple stage residual income model. Now, again, we should be asking ourselves, what is the difference and how do these models really interact with one another? Well, the dividend discount model and the free cash flow model start by discounting dividends or cash flows, and then they look for a terminal value. And remember, that terminal value is highly dependent upon the relationship in the denominator of growth and the discount rate. If you misestimate those or get those wrong, that terminal value can go all over the place, and then we present value this back. So the bulk of the value in those DDMs and the free cash flow models comes from the terminal price. If we turn this 180 degrees, the residual income model starts with book value and then adds this little stream of positive or negative residual income. And so ideally, more of the value comes from the book value rather than from the stream of economic profits discounted back by the discount rate. Now, in theory, you should get to the same values. So I would highly encourage that you do the chapters in the back of the book, the CFA candidate readings, to actually go through this very example. They actually give you 2 or 3 problems where they ask you to calculate the value of the security using the dividend discount model and then the residual income model, and you come up with exactly the same. Now, in theory, that works. In practice, because it's kind of like a top-down and a bottom-up approach, trying to come up to exactly the same place, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. But I would highly encourage for you to recognize by working through the problems that that's exactly what you need to do. What are the strengths of the residual income model? One is that the terminal value, as in with the dividend discount model and the free cash flow models, in those cases, the terminal value does dominate the intrinsic value, but not in the residual income model. The residual income model takes most of its value from the beginning book value. So as a result, the strength is that we can actually go to the accounting statements, look at the footnotes, and determine where the value really resides when we convert a U.S. GAAP financial statement to a more economic-based financial statement. So all that accounting data is actually available. You can use the residual income model with firms that pay no dividends or that don't have any positive cash flows, and firms that may have negative cash flows as a result of maybe a large capital expenditure or an acquisition. Okay? And it is even acceptable when you've got a firm that's got volatile or unpredictable cash flows. And lastly, it really does focus on economic profitability. It removes the interest expense for the bondholders, the equity charge for the equity holders, and says, given its competitive advantage and its sustainability in the marketplace, what is this franchise, what is this residual income, what is this economic profit really, or what's a firm really going to be worth. Okay, so there's a lot of very positive strengths to it. Now the weaknesses come up with the accounting. Remember we said as we walked through the examples, if we took the beginning book value and added the retained earnings and subtracted its dividends, we should get the book value at the end of the period. Okay? But we also know that earnings, as well as book value, can be manipulated by the estimates, the judgments, and the assessments that management has to make to put those accounting financial statements together. Now, it's not as though they intentionally do it. Sometimes they might. But we just recognize it does create some problems. And it requires lots of adjustments to get those book values to be economic basis rather than basically a financial GAAP basis. Okay? So that definition at the bottom, I want to make sure we highlight this. This term is kind of important. It's called the clean surplus solution or clean surplus relation. And what it says is that the beginning book value plus earnings minus the dividends equals the book value at the end of the period. And essentially what that does is it links the income statement to the balance sheet. Well, sometimes this doesn't hold. There are 4 conditions that we're going to go through in a moment where this does not hold. And it's that link that you have to FSA